The New York Mets continue their selling at the deadline as they send Justin Verlander back to Houston. This is continued Locked On MLB trade deadline coverage. I'm your host, Jeff Carr, channel manager of Locked On MLB. Joining me again is Ryan Finkelstein from Locked On Mets. We talked about Max Scherzer going to the Rangers, so let's pick that other team in Texas. The Mets send Justin Verlander to the Houston Astros. And this was a trade that I feel like had a saga of rumors attached to it. We heard this, that, and the other, and it always felt like the Astros were the common denominator. What was your initial reaction, Ryan, whenever you first saw this trade?
It feels like Justin Verlander kind of steered his direction here. Obviously, it's been a long time at the Astros. It's a great relationship with their owner, Jim Crane, and he had no trade clause. So, the Dodgers, the Orioles, they have great farm systems. The Mets might have liked those prospects a little more depending on what was being offered, but Houston was always the team. I will say, as more reports have come in and people who know prospects better than me have evaluated it, seems like the Mets did pretty well for a farm system that wasn't as highly regarded. They got two prospects I think they're going to be really excited about. And honestly, at this deadline, when it's all said and done, probably half of the Mets' updated top 10 will come from players they just acquired. So I think they've gone all in on selling, and I think they've done pretty well.
I was going to say that's something before we really kind of dive into the two guys that they got back in the trade. It's almost as if the Mets created a new way to sell because they paid down some of Max Scherzer's contract. They're probably paying down. We haven't heard the exact report just yet for the Justin Verlander deal, but there's a lot of, looking at this and saying, are they buying these prospects? It's a very unique way of doing things. The Mets and Steve Cohen seem to be probably the only team equipped for it. Is this something, though, that moving forward you really want to see a lot of?
I think it's a unique to this year's situation when the payroll is, and honestly, it could also be because of this year, they're not going to operate in the same way. We don't know what the Mets are doing beyond this season. There's a chance that next year they're leaning into youth and kind of in a little mini rebuild. We still don't know exactly what the fallout is. I think for this specific team, the Mets have been telegraphing this for a while. I've been on it with Locked On Mets for the last couple months. When they traded Eduardo Escobar, ate down all the money, got a better prospect than you would have expected for a guy that was barely playing for the Mets, you saw the strategy, and it was kind of laid out for the Mets. Now, the question was, would they pull the trigger on doing it with the two most high-priced pitchers in baseball? That was always the unknown, and they've gone all the way into that strategy, making these deals, and they've basically taken what would usually be a multi-year rebuild for a lot of farm systems and done it in a matter of weeks.
When the dust settles here, and we're still a little over 2 hours left before the deadline hits, when the dust settles, is there any other big name guy that you expect to be traded? I remember you mentioned Mark Canha. He's already been traded to the Brewers. You mentioned Tommy Pham. But is there anyone else that would kind of be that, oh, the Mets traded that guy?
There's still, I think, about 4 names. So Tommy Pham will be gone. He's a rental. I don't see any reason why they keep him. Brooks Raley is an interesting one because he still has a year of control. He's been great this year. I think a lot of teams might pay pretty big from this market we're seeing for a left-hander reliever with the stuff he has and the way he's performed this year. The other two, Omar Narvaez, he sort of got Wally pipped by Francisco Alvarez this year, was injured. Alvarez came up, took the job. He's next year has a player option that he'll likely exercise. The Mets could eat money on both the subsequent player option in this year and basically give the teams a catcher that can start on a lot of teams for low money. So that's another move I think could happen. And then Jose Quintana, he's got another year beyond this one, $13 million. Again, Mets could eat that down. He could become pretty attractive. We'll see. It could be an active last couple hours here as the Mets clearly, as much as Billy Upper said it wasn't a fire sale, it's a fire sale. They're trading everyone not named Pete Alonso. And honestly, probably the right course. If you're going to do it, get all you can and reassess where you're at this offseason.
If it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, it's probably a fire sale. Where do these two guys that they just acquired, Drew Gilbert and Ryan Clifford, fit into the Mets farm system?
There's some that are saying Gilbert could be right atop the Mets farm. I mean, Luis Angel Acuna, maybe the top prospect. Kevin Parada, the Mets first-round draft pick last year, could be the top prospect, or it could be Gilbert. I think those might now be the top 3. And then I've also seen some saying that Clifford's the steal of this deal. The second guy that got back, Ryan Clifford, guy who has, I think, 16 home runs in high A at like 19 years old. He just turned 20. He was a guy that I only saw where he was drafted, and it was like the 12th round out of high school. I imagine he was an overslot guy that the Astros invested in to get him to sign. And two outfielders now that I think are surefire top 10 prospects in the Mets system. And before long, both could be top 5 prospects. So they didn't get a package of 3 or 4 prospects. We saw Chas McCormick was offered in some trades. Maybe the Astros wanted it to be Gilbert and McCormick. And the Mets, instead of taking the proven big leaguer, potentially really wanted Clifford. So we'll see how this ends up panning out over the next couple of years. But the bottom line is the Mets got 2 more high upside prospects to slot into their system, and they are clearly having their eyes set towards the future.
Sounds like the Mets are going to continue to be busy for these final couple of hours. Make sure you keep it tuned to Locked On Mets for all of your latest updates. Ryan, thanks.